Aloha! My name is Ashton Nicolas Obrero, and I'm the founder and CEO of Creative Natives. And your host for the Creative Natives podcast, hashtag the CNP, where you can find me having curated conversations with musicians and artists of all kinds, plus cultural practitioners, community organizers, and creative entrepreneurs. We'll be covering all things music, art, culture, and business. So tune in, take notes, and tell a friend. It's time to talk story with some creative natives. Hawaiian native Kuʻulei Perreira-Keawekane. I said that correctly? Pololei?
Yes, that's Pololei Mahalo.
AKA at Mauli.ola on Instagram, is a musician, cultural advocate, and Hawaiian activist, I would even say. She recently released a single entitled Aloha Aina Meds, as well as a full-length album, prayer album?
Something like that. Yeah, I guess you could say it's a full length.
Okay,
yes,
right
prayer
on.
album.
Both of which are available on digital outlets. I was
Yes.
listening to it all day, getting myself pumped up in the zone.
Mahalo,
We're gonna talk
mahalo.
about those mele in a second, but how about you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, my full name is Kiana Ihilani Kuʻulei Perreira-Keawekane. Also, our Ohana also say Pereira, but our Pereira is Puerto Rican, which is different than the Portuguese Pereira. So that's how we can tell who we're related to and who we're not related to is by the Portuguese or Puerto Rican. But
So
yes,
some pronounce it with the different R.
No, I think both the pronunciation is my thing. I pronounce it Pereira. When I'm introducing myself in a lot of spaces, not all, but in a lot of spaces, just as a way to reclaim my relationship to the way that it's actually said.
That's interesting because my last name is Ombrero, right? And I've always kind of grew up hearing it in Ombrero, in that pronunciation. And I'm kind of recently just like wondering the true
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize, but those are little ways that we start to be separated from the mother of those languages. Like, for example, Pereira is Puerto Rican, and I don't know what it means. I guess you could also say that it's maybe Spanish, because I don't know the technicalities of the language. And I don't know the root of the name, but as I learn, I'm holding space for that journey and that pathway intentionally by pronouncing it the way that my Puerto Rican kupuna did. So that's that's a small way that I reclaim the relationship I have to my cultural identity, especially my Puerto Rican culture. But yeah, so that's similar to you deciding that you will say, what's your name? What's your last name?
Obrero.
Obrero, yeah.
Obrero. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So similarly, you could start saying that. And so I guess to answer your question, no, both Pereiras are locally pronounced Pereira. So there isn't a difference between the pronunciation, but instead the root, you know. But yes, so I'm actually from Panaeva, Waiakea. When I think of Waiakea natives, I think of different people than Panaeva natives, even though Panaeva is in Waiakea. But Panaeva is a Hawaiian homelands community, and it's also an ili'aina. Like right. An ili'aina is like a smaller land division of an ahupua'a. So there are all those land division things, but when it comes to who I am, my character, my morale, my talent, my wisdom, like all of those things come from the kupuna and the kupuna aina that raised me. So my mauna is mauna wakea, particularly the pu'u that is kukahau'ula. Those are the land features that have spiritually raised me. Also, um, Lokoaka in Hono. I recently learned that it's not Keokaha. That's like past the boundaries of Keokaha. It's like, I think it's Hono Hono Nui. Hilo, Waiakea and Hilo, but those are the waters that raised me, particularly the site of Peve. And I'm spending so much time talking about my Aina because that's more important than like any degrees that I have or any kind of merit. Like that's an important part of my merit.
Right.
Like the kupuna Aina that I come from. It's really, really important. So but anyway, that's me. I come from a long line of kupuna that are pastors. But I also can understand the relationship that our ohana has to Akua before missionaries got here. So before we were pastors, we were spirit people of a different denomination, like a different, maybe we weren't Christian, but before we converted, maybe we were spirit people of different Akua. I don't know, but
Right.
so I come from a long line of spirit people. I like to say that because then it gets weird because people are like, Christians. I don't know. But yes, that's a little bit about me.
Right on, mahalo. I love how just personally learning about Hawaiian culture, place, and using the correct place names is important to perpetuate and bring back a culture that was almost dying.
Yeah, I really love to say that we're thriving and alive, like to all manner that truth. And also it is really important. And as you can see, I'm still learning myself and I don't have any I don't like pretend that I know everything and I'm like, oh yeah, I know everything about even who I am myself. I'm still learning
Yeah,
about who I am too, So
same, definitely. Pereira. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means in Spanish, but I did get to live in Puerto Rico for a couple years, and
mm,
the people over there and the Aina over there is so beautiful, and the history and how we relate as islanders is so similar, and down to like even they had an island where the U.S. military was bombing, right? Vieques is called, same as
mm,
Kaho'olawe, and down to like small little histories like that, and it's just I've always wanted to bridge that gap. So it's cool to I knew that there was Puerto Ricans out here in Hawaii because of the sugar plantation immigrations, but it's nice to talk with someone who is Puerto Rican as well as Hawaiian.
yeah, yeah. My mom is Hawaiian, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Portuguese. Her dad is 50% Portuguese, 50% Puerto Rican, and his mom is 100% Portuguese, and his dad is 100% Puerto Rican. So
Oh
like my
wow,
kupuna are like I know them, I know their faces. The ones that come from Portugal and come from Puerto Rico.
beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm really grateful to know my kupuna as I begin to learn more about myself. But yeah, I'm
And how
fortunate.
did you get Ku'ulei?
Oh, I love that question. Actually, my great grandmother, so my mom is Hawaiian, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Portuguese. Her mom is half Hawaiian, half Chinese. My great grandma
Okay.
is half Hawaiian, half Chinese. But so that great grandma, my mom's mom, her name is Ku'ulei. Her middle
Oh
name is
wow.
Ku'ulei. And so that's my middle name. And I have an auntie Ku'ulei that's just this really amazing storyteller. This storyteller auntie who is just really, really beautiful and really, she's very Hawaii. And I call her Auntie Ku'ulei. And as I was growing up, I was like, I really want to bring that out of myself. Like, I really want to bring that mana and bring that aloha for Aina out of myself. And I
Yeah.
decided to go with Ku'ulei because of my Auntie Ku'ulei. I also wanted to be an Auntie Ku'ulei, and now I am, and that's really awesome.
That was
but
actually one of the questions I was gonna ask is how, because going through like kind of just IG stalking you and looking you up, that was a question I was gonna ask. How did you become so well spoken? And like you just said, it's because of Anti Ku'ulei, but how was that relationship you guys had and that
Yeah,
influence?
no, we're not. I mean, we're Pili because our ohana is Pili, but I probably spoke to her maybe 3 times in my life.
Oh,
It was just like this one or two moments that we've had together that really really stood out to me and really made me feel like, oh, like I definitely want to be like this auntie, you know.
right
But
on. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Ku'ulei is my name though. Like I didn't just steal her name. Like that's my no, but it was given to me, and then also as I started to deepen into my aloha for Aina as my auntie Ku'ulei does, or at least in very surface levels, I because I consider myself a very like just on the surface of aloha for Aina. Like I just live on the surface of it. Like I'm just learning. But my my dad's mom's mom, or my great grandma on my dad's side, she gave my tutu up for adoption to another one of her ohana members, and I learned that actually her name is also Ku'ulei. Her middle name is also Ku'ulei. Like I
Wow.
learned that as I was going through my journey, and I was like, oh, like I was definitely on the pu'u when I really decided to go at Ku'ulei. So I'm super stoked. Mahalo for that question. And yes, to move
Yeah,
on
of
to the question
course.
that is like, how did I get to be so quote unquote well spoken? I come from, so my dad's mo'oku'auhau leads to John Henry Wise, who is a really well-known politician of the 1900s. He and Prince Jonah Kuhio Kalaniana Ole were really close friends. He was a senator in Hawaii, and he also helped Prince Kuhio found Hawaiian Homes, the Hawaiian Homes Act of 1920 and like slash 21. But he like it's in my mo'oku auhau. It's in my lineage to be well spoken and to be oratory. That kupuna that was a senator also went on to become a pastor.
Mm.
Um, I don't know
Runs
if
in the
you can.
family, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear my dad in the back, but I was like, oh, huh? But my dad is also a pastor. But anyway, the thing about like pastoring, like I don't like to focus on the religious part of it, because there's a mana to it that extends beyond and older, that is older than religion. But like if you think about what a pastor is, or like what a kahu is. Like, yeah, I think kahu is probably a better word, because English pastor makes you think of other things that I'm not thinking of. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been our kulana, like it's been our like our function for generations and generations to speak. Because to preach, it's not just to like to say things. Like to preach as a pastor is to orate. Like it's an art. It's an art to be able to take your thoughts and take your feelings about a thing and like pull it up through your throat and make it come out of your lips. Like that's an art that's been in my ohana for a really long time. So that's one way that I came into that. My mom and my mom's mom always made sure that I was reading when I was really
Mm,
young. I
yes.
always read. Like we have this 100th day of school thing where it's like the 100th day of school. Everybody brings like 100 Cheerios or 100 popcorns. Like I literally bought 100 books. Like I
Oh,
was
right
always
on.
fully reading when I was young, and
Oh,
we never have cable, so like I was literally always reading. So that has a lot to do with it. Also, I graduated from Kamehameha schools, and I learned that that was definitely a privilege that I have over a lot of my hoa. But yes, Kalmai, that was a long-winded
no,
answer.
no,
All my
no.
all my
Love it.
answers are forever long.
I love it. I love it. Uh,
Yeah.
I love just the genealogical work that Hawaiians are so ma'a to, and they just
Yeah.
that's just their thing. And I'm full Filipino, and even as Filipinos, it's kind of not really a thing that we delve deep into, right? I have to do a lot of the legwork on my
Mm.
own and go searching for my own. But I love how you answered that. So Ku'ulei Perreira-Keawekane. Mauliola though, what does that have to
Oh,
do with you?
yeah. I
Is that like
love,
your
love,
type of
love
Moha
that.
or
Yeah, no,
Filipino?
so actually I just want to mahalo you for acknowledging the mana that is my mo'oku'auhau and the relationship that I have. Mo'oku'auhau is the Hawaiian word for genealogy. I always wanna go deeper into like what mo'oku'auhau means, but it's like a whole podcast in itself.
Right.
But anyway, I want everybody to know that I didn't always know my kupuna. Like I didn't always know them, and I didn't always know that my kupuna was John Henry Wise, who was like like one of the first Olalo Hawaii teachers in Eva, not in Eva the place. I mean like ever. But and not even ever, but I mean no, he was a Hawaiian language teacher as the revitalization of our language. I don't know, it's kind of a long story. Anyway, I want to stay on the focus of the question, which was what was the question? I forgot the question.
I'll go back to that, but you reminding me relating to that last question is I love the genealogical work in that you fully are aware and know of yourself and who you are as a person because of the genealogical work that you've done and the work that you've done, and to know and research and learn about your ancestors and your kupuna.
Oh yeah, mahalo. I want everybody to feel like there is hope in developing that relationship. Right now and at this time, there's like a cosmic thing that's happening in this time. And that cosmic thing that is happening is that people's kupuna, who they don't know and do, but people who like for example you, like I don't know how quote unquote far back in your mo'oku'auhau you can go, like that you know their names and you know their faces, but like there's this thing that's happening right now where old kupuna are coming into the spaces of their mo'opuna, like us. Right. And like making themselves known through like just feelings that we have, like oh my god, yeah, like ho'ailona that we can see, but also things that we feel, you know, like oh my gosh, I don't know if this is like the right thing I should be doing, like I don't know if I should or like, oh, I should get involved with this protest, or I should share this post because this is important. Like a lot of these things that are coming up for us are very old, like the connection and the relationship that we long to have as people to our land is very old. So right now there's a lot of people whose kupuna are like, hey you, get involved. Hey you, do something about this, you know? And so I just want there to be some hope for people who don't feel like they have a relationship to their old people, who don't know the names of their old people, who were maybe like adopted and they like don't know. They are in us. Our old people are in us, and we just ought to call them. We just ought to call them out and like really dedicate some time and space to trying to remember them, like remember them from the inside out. Like that has to be a process. But anyway, I just mahalo for that. Mahalo. I would
even go as far to say that it's a type of like ancestral intuition.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is. I really think that and feel that. Yep, it is.
I love it. I love the way that you present your answers, and it's just like you cover all the points. And
I love it. And then I go all over the place, and I was like, wait, where was?
Well, going back to the question I asked earlier, it was Mauliola. What is?
Yeah. Mahalo for keeping us on track. Actually, the reason I made that my Instagram name is so that more people would start to say it. As I got more and more popular and more followers, I wanted people to say it. And they do. Like people who would never have ever said that word in their lives have saw me, like they've seen me in public and they were like, oh, Mauliola. Or like literally one time I was driving slow looking for this house. I was in the passenger seat and this person that was standing on the road shouted at the top of their lungs, like Mauliola. And it was just like that moment was just like one of the biggest, most like amazing paydays for me, because that word Mauliola is so special. Like it's such a special word and such a special there's such a special meaning behind that word. And so do you want to know what it means?
Of course. So all I know is that's Sand Island as well, right?
Okay, yeah. I heard of that too.
That's as far as I know.
Okay, cool. So that's the name for a place that is like Sand Island.
Right.
Also, I've heard a lot of Aloha Aina, Mo'olelo, Aloha Aina, or Aloha Aina stories about that place. So I really mahalo that. Also, Mauliola was an akua, or is an akua. I don't know too much about the akua that is Mauliola, or the deity that is Mauliola. But primarily in this day, age, and time, Mauliola is the term that means, or that is used to refer to wellness. But the wellness of a person's Aboriginal root, or the wellness of a person's cultural identity.
Wow.
So Mauliola, and there are a few documents that talk about this. Dr. Keawekane Kaholokula, he talks about Mauliola by introducing the idea that there are 4 pokihi, or 4 corner posts to Native Hawaiian health. And those 4 corner posts, so Mauliola from the perspective of a health, from the health perspective, is you have and you are in spaces of Mauliola when you are so the 4 pokihi of Mauliola are Keao Oiwi, or indigenous space. So like if you feel safe to be Hawaii in Hawaii, like if you feel safe to be and to embody your cultural truth anywhere you go, like if your space is safe for that, that has to do with Mauliola. If you have access to aipono, or like healthy consumption, not just of fruits and vegetables and food, but also energy. Like if you have access to some kind of land, even if you don't own it, if you have access to like standing your feet on the earth, that has to do with the wellness of your identity, of your cultural identity. Kamala ma'aina, like are you in positions of being able to sustain the care of that land? And then also kavaiola, so like social justice, is that pokihi. So like how are you perceived in the societal spaces that you take up and live in? So that's what Mauliola is from the medical, like Department of Native Hawaiian Health, John A. Burns School of Medicine kind of side of things. But to Hawaii's, and this comes from the Kumu Honua Mauliola, which is a book, it's an educational philosophy statement. But for Hawaii's, Mauliola is the ability to have and know and be connected to these 4 things. This is a separate ideology of Mauliola. But to be connected to your spirituality, so your pili uhane, it has to do with being able to articulate yourself with your language, like the language of your people. And I'm not just talking about like like I'm not just talking about like the language, but the worldview. Right. Like if you're able to speak and live and see the world from your cultural lens, like from the lens of a Hawaii, that has to do with your wellness. Also your behaviors, or your lavena, like how you are in your life. Like if you know, like for example, lavena Hawaii is like, oh, haze, aloha. You know, like there's always this aloha way about Hawaii's, especially when it comes to like each other. Like if your lavena is safe and thriving, that has to do with your wellness, and also your ike ku'una. So like your the knowledge that you have about the practices that are ours. So like my ike, so my dad sings and my tutu sings. So our ike ku'una is song. So how often do I do that? You know. So anyway, Mauliola is not a particularly Hawaiian thing. So like for you who have Filipino roots, like how close are you to your spirituality? And like how often do you consider or think about the spirituality of your old people? Your language, like what do words in your language mean? Do you have a relationship to the worldview of your people? Behaviors, like what are some of the customs that you just do that are very like Filipino, like in your mind? You know, like, oh, that's super, and that you're proud of. Like, what are those things? And then like what kinds of things do you do that maybe your parents and grandparents and great grandparents like that they've done? Like what kinds of things do you do today that perpetuate that way? So like the wellness of a person's cultural identity, like that is Mauliola. So for people to say it, for people who never would have ever said it, if that wasn't my name on Instagram, for them to say it, it's like a one small tiny step into their reclamation of their own Mauli, of their own Mauliola. So I don't know. I know that's a lot of words, but like,
No, yeah.
I'm trying to explain my excitement for the ways that people interact with that term, because it's like a dose of medicine for their own wellness. So
The depth
just all those things.
behind the name, I love it.
Yes,
I would
yes.
would you agree that it's kind of synonymous with vai and the term behind?
Something like that. I think it's a little bit deeper. It's a little bit like, because vai is the word for water. And also maybe riches or wealth, but wealth and health are like two different things in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways they're the same, but yeah, I wouldn't say synonymous, but I would definitely say like they're in the likeness. Yes, related, absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. So let's switch gears a little bit. I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you how you deal with pressure, because you have like what, over 18,000 followers on Instagram, right?
Something like that, yeah.
How do you deal with pressure as one? I don't know if influencer would be an appropriate word, but an influencer, a musician, and a cultural practitioner. How do you deal with the different pressures?
Yeah. Sometimes I don't, like sometimes I don't deal with it, and I'm just like, oh, like the Instagram thing, I kind of had to put it down for a little while, and the things that I share on there are just the same things that anybody else would share, like about their day or about like whatever. I think the remembrance, like remembering who I am and why I have a platform to begin with, helps me a lot. Because a lot of the pressure that I experience from my following / followers / influencer account, like all of those pressures comes from my like stress that I put on myself. Like I'm thinking, oh, like I'm not doing a good enough job as an influencer, or I'm not. Oh, so for example, HB 499, it was a bill that recently was actually passed. I think it was passed today. And people needed information about how to call their senators and like get things done so that they could export the mass idea that we don't want HB 499 so that it would not be passed, but I was working and I was like just trying to stay in my brain, and I was like, oh my god, like I don't know how to, and I didn't do half as much as I wanted to in order to get the word out that people need to call their politicians, those senator people or whatever. There's always going to be something that I didn't do right, but I have to remember that I'm also a human, and that I also need sleep, and that I also need rest, and that not to be facetious or anything, but I don't owe anybody. I don't owe anybody anything except myself and the kupuna that I come from and the aina that I live on. Like I don't like that has been a phrase that has kept me safe and well in my body, because it seems like there are 18,000 people that need my attention, that I owe them my attention, that I owe them a response, that I owe them like all the things in my DMs, like I owe everybody a response. And it gets to be overwhelming sometimes, but I wanted to say also that it's my relationship to my aina that really keeps me. It's the relationship that I have to particular places and particular pu'u, like particular mountains and particular water sources that literally keep me in my brain. And not only that, but how I relate those natural spaces with what people call God. Like how I relate the two. Those are the things that keep me safe in my body and in my mind and in my life, you know. So that's that answer.
Yeah, no, definitely kind of nature just to keep you grounded, and the balance of like all that screen time and just
Yeah.
stepping away, turning off, unplugging, and
Yeah. Yeah.
reconnecting to Akua and Aina. Yes, I love it. Um, so switching gears, Hanaho, one more time. I wanted you to tell us the mo'alalo behind your cacao.
Oh, that's a super deep question. Yeah.
If it's
Yeah, yeah,
appropriate,
yeah.
if it's appropriate.
Yeah, I could share for sure. That's a whole like 3 hour long conversation, but I feel like if I was to simplify slash oversimplify, um, I think like the question I have for you is like, why do you want to know?
I want to know because as a Filipino, I'm learning a lot about my ancestral roots as well. I was privileged enough to get a batok from practitioner Manong Lane. We're gonna have him on a podcast as well soon. I'm stoked to talk about him, but that's just another avenue that I allowed myself to practice and get in touch with my roots. And so, this is, my kupuna, and this is a culmination of where they're from and the story of my ancestors as far as I know back, which is only a couple grandparents back, um, on me, and the ceremony and the whole process of it was very empowering to me personally, and for me to ask you that, I'm just wondering because, you know, as an influencer, as someone that has this platform, it is a part of your image, right? I
Mm.
mean, business school, and we talk about artist imaging, right? And so it's just, I feel like when people see that, it's kind of empowering to them subconsciously. They may not
Mm.
realize,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So that's all.
Yeah, cool.
That makes sense.
Mahalo. Yeah, mahalo for that truth. That's a question that came to my heart when you asked, because I think different people, just in general, people have different questions for different things, and it's important to that they ask themselves why they want to know. Like it, because sometimes people are just curious, and then they're not going to do anything with that information. You know, like it's not going to actually help them in any way. They just want to have it. Like they just want to have ownership over that information, and then it's like, well, what do I want to tell you? Like, how deep do I want to tell you? You know, if that's
Yeah.
if you're just gonna do nothing with that information. But so mahalo for letting me know that that's what your intentions are, because that's also important. As I tell you, there are so many different facets to the mo'olelo, or the story that goes along with the markings that I hold on my face. But there is a truth that is simple. There's a truth that is simple. And the truth that is simple for me, or my truth that is simple for me, is that Akua, like Kanaka Aina Akua connections, are what will save us. Kanaka Aina Akua connections. I think that's a thing. Like it might be called the Lokahi Triangle. I don't know what it.
Triangle, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't actually read any of those things, but my auntie and I were talking about these, and this came up. But when people start to talk about God, there's this something happens inside of them because of the ways that the word God is used biblically and in the Christian truth and in Catholic truth and in like the history of colonization, and the history of the word God is just really thick and painful and traumatic for a lot of Native people.
Yes.
So when you say that word, it gets to be really triggering. So I use the word akua, and the clarity for me, and the clarity that I came into before I got these markings is that because I used to dance for Pele Ka'io, and I intend to dance for Pele Ka'io again. Pele Ka'io is a teacher of Unulau, which is a halau that I belong to and am away from right now. But it's like Hawaiian religion. Like when you think of Hawaiian religion or like pagan people or like heathen people, like it's them, it's us, you know. But also my dad is a pastor, and my grandma is a pastor, and my great grandma was a pastor, and my grandpa was a you know what I'm saying. So the clarity that is that there's a something that is so old. There's a resonance that is so old and so true and so real. And there is only like, not that there is only one, but it's all it. It's all it. So like the resonance that is the Kane Hoalani, which is the energy of the sun, that is a very true resonance. The resonance that is the laka, like the transpiration of the greenery and of the forest, the transpiration of that, the sweat of that is that same resonance, and it takes a different form, but it's the same resonance. The pele, that is the creation of life, like the pele honua mea, that is the lava that comes up and spews out and makes more land, like that is the same resonance, this divine resonance. And it's all like in this great pie, or this great abundance of resonance. And that resonance is what I call akua. And so I do the church thing, and I do the Christian thing, and because that's the oya i'o that I was born into, and that's what I was raised in. But my relationship to that truth is that oneness. So there isn't a conflict for me between the akua that I serve on Sundays and the akua that I serve mid halau. Like there isn't any conflict for me. And so this tattoo holds me accountable to remembering that truth. Every single day when I look in the mirror, this tattoo holds me accountable to that truth. And as easy as it is to separate polytheism from monotheism, from Allah, from the Buddha, from the Dalai Lama, as easy as it is to separate all those things, this tattoo reminds me of the oneness that is that resonance, that is a universal resonance, you know. So if you look closely at this tattoo, the markings, this is of the pika pika he'e, or like the tentacle, the like that the squeeze, like the suction things.
Yeah, it helps on the octopus.
Yeah. That's these lines on the outside. Okay. And then there's a straight line, and then there's a squiggly line, and there's another straight line, and then it comes down into this diamond kind of thing under here. And so these different designs, I really mahalo Kahui o Pu'aukalani Mahi for his work at Tattoos by Mahi. I'm like, shameless plug, but
yes, I've heard of him.
Yeah. So we're spiritually related. Like his papa was the kahu of the Waimea Church, and it's funny because he also has face tattoos, and my tutu is the kahu of our Hilo Church. So we're related in our spiritual genealogy to each other. But yes, so this represents the kumulipo. Like these are articulations of of Hawaii's oldest chant. Actually, I don't know that it's the oldest, so don't fact check me there. But one of our really, really old pules that provides an account of everything that was born into the world. And so just yesterday, actually, I did some reading in the book of Genesis, like of the ways that Christian people believe that the world came into itself. And it's really, really resonant with the ways the kumulipo is laid out. So I just mahalo that. But anyway, there was a clear voice. There was a clear voice in the process of me understanding this tattoo. I didn't want it at first. I really did not want this tattoo, but there was like I got sick, and then there was a truth, there was an accountability, and then there's just a bunch of things in the story. But the truth was, so in my mind, I was crying when I realized, when I got the call to get these markings. I cried, and I said, where will I work? Like, where will I work? Because I can't work at a hotel. I can't work at Macy's, and I can't work at Walmart, and nobody's going to hire me to work at, like, at any place else. Like, where will I work? And then the voice said, you don't belong working at a hotel. You don't belong working at Ross, and you don't belong working at Macy's, and you don't belong working at Walmart. Like, and I knew that every time I had a job, I spent like 2 weeks there, and then I left it. Like, I already knew that I didn't belong working in those spaces. Same. But the clarity of the voice said, you are to save my land and teach my children. And I really believe that was Akua. That was Akua saying, save my land and teach my children. And it's not a white God. It's not a white God that said that. It's a resonant voice. So I wouldn't deny that was the voice of like Jehovah. But I also wouldn't deny that was the voice of Kanaloa. But I also would not deny that was the voice of any other religious, like, God, that deity that people call it. Because it's like it was a resonance, you know.
They're all one and the same.
Yeah, and the clarity of the voice was like, because I was like, my face, you know, like, my face. It's on my face forever and ever.
Yeah.
And my tutu kept saying no, like she cried when because I had to prepare my ohana for the process of getting these markings, and my tutu was just like, no, like, I don't want you to do that, and what about, and she was just very afraid for me. But she said, your beautiful face, your beautiful face, because, and even my mom, she knew a certain face her whole life, you know. And Kalame, I'm going to wrap this up in like 20 seconds.
No,
this is so long.
Yeah.
So long. But
it's a deep topic.
Yeah, and I didn't even like get to the half of it, but we're just going to keep it succinct for today. The clarity was, it's not about your face. Like, it's not about your face, and you're not on this earth to show face. Like, it's about what you do. So, like, the underlying truth was that I'm not here to, like, I wasn't put on this earth to fit into any type of, like, any type of space that is quiet, or that is, not quiet, but like submissive to Heva.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was, it's almost like, when people are afraid of what people will think about their face, they don't komo makahana. Like, they don't do certain things, and they don't, they won't protest because they think that it'll affect how they look. Right. You know, they don't want to sacrifice their face. But me marking on my face is already like, the word mutilation is like coming to mind, but that's not what this is. But it was like, it's already, it kind of like sheds a light on what it is to be prepared, like to be prepared to do a work and to come knowing what you're here to do.
Yeah.
You know, so I was drinking a lot before I got these markings, and I was like, I was like doing a lot of coping things. Like there were many a men. Like, I would drink and then sing and then go home with men. Like, that was my toxic trait, my toxic pattern. Mm-hmm. But when I got this tattoo, I knew that those things needed to stop. And so, like, I can't go anywhere where people will think that I'm not here, that I'm here to play around. Like, people already know that I'm not playing around in this life, you know? So when we say land back, and when we say Aole TMT, like, people look at me and they know that I'm not kidding because they see this on my face. So the clear voices were, you are to save my land and teach my children. You don't belong working in hotels. The clear voice was, it's not about your face. And honestly, like, kalamai for my language, you can bleep this out and edit it if you need to. But the clarity of the voice is, we're not fucking around.
Yeah.
Like, we're not fucking around.
Yeah.
So when it comes to my work, it's a lot deeper and a lot more serious than it was before I got this tattoo, because it was just, I was choosing that life. Yeah. But after I got this tattoo, my kupuna were like, here, girl, this is where you need to be. Like, you need to step these steps and walk this path. And it's kind of been that since I got this tattoo. It's kind of like been that. So mahalo for making space for this conversation, and kalamai that I took so long to answer these questions. We didn't even get to any of my music or what. But
mahalo ya oi. That yeah, that's a very vulnerable conversation to have, and I feel that same way about my botok as well, because it just kind of allowed me to step into more into who I'm learning about.
Yes. Right. Also, this is not done. There are more things that I have to accomplish until I can continue the image. Like, it has more to go, but I have more to accomplish before I can do that. So but yes, mahalo for making that connection between the markings on our bodies.
Life journey, I love it.
Life journey, yeah.
So I guess we can move into the music now and the mele.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just watching your guys' behind the scenes video. I just put that up. But if you can kind of just summarize that video into an answer, what inspired you and Ika Akamai to collaborate on a song like Aloha Aina Meds, and tell us more about it.
Yep. So that song includes this song called Mele no Kapuni Lile Lile, and it means song for those who covet shiny things. That song was published on February 21st, 1893, which is just a month after the illegal occupation of Hawaii began. There was do you remember when in the beginning of this episode, when I told you that there is this 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 surge of kupuna that are resurfacing in today's time? Yeah. There's like this surge of old people who are making themselves like relevant and apparent and present in this time through the people that come from them, right? So that song made its way to me in a very real way. And this is not the first version of the song that I did with Ika Akamai. But the song Aloha Aina Meds includes Mele no Kapuni Lile Lile, but also Ku Ha'aheo, which is Kumuhina, but also Ku'e Ahiki Ke Aloha Aina Hopeloa. And that's a refrain. I feel like there are so many lines that I could focus on that kind of like tell you what the song is about. But I think it's probably that one. Like, if I had to pick any song or any line of the song, it would be that line. And the line is Ku'e ahiki ike aloha aina hopeloa. And that means stand different. Like, some people could say protest or resist, or like some people use that, but ku'e means to stand different. To stand different until the very last person who loves their land. Ku'e ahiki ke aloha aina hopeloa. Until the very last aloha aina. That was spoken by James Kaulia. And it reflects our commitment to the wellness of our aina. And we are part of that aina. So I just want to tell you a really quick story about today. I saw one of my friends at Target, and I remember when Target wasn't there, my mom and I used to take out our lunch wagon, like drive our lunch truck into where the Target parking lot is now, and we used to sell plate lunches, but because we had a certified kitchen and all these things, but anyway, I know, and then it came to a part where like Department of Hawaiian Homelands was like, you cannot come over here, and we're like, what? Why? And it was because they're gonna build a Target. Anyway, and now that I know,
selling though.
no, but so anyway, I was in Target today and I saw one of my friends and she was beautiful. Like, I graduated in 2013, and so by this time, a lot of us have kids, or we own a house, or we're married, or like, like we're established in our careers, or we have degrees, And this friend that I actually saw two. They were together, two of my high school friends, but this friend that I saw was very, like, it looked like she was dressed for an office job. And like her hair was pulled back really neatly, and she had like this cardigan thing on, and she had like a little heel, and like an outfit that was just like an office thing. Proper. And she smelled good, like I don't know, it was like she was like an adult, I was like, oh my god, an adult. And then I remember like looking down at my feet, and my feet are like Hawaiian feet. So no. Like my feet are brown, but also my feet are like not the kind of feet that fit into those shoes, like those kinds of shoes. And I just remember looking at my feet like and feeling embarrassed because I didn't look like her. And because my life didn't fit in the same kind of life that she lives. Like I live on a farm, and as I was like checking out of Target, I was also checking out of my mind, and I there was like this communication, and the communication was that we are not that. Like, I mean, we are that. There are a lot of us who are like pretty and they work office jobs, and that's great. But in my mind, like Hawaii beauty is not the same as assimilated beauty. Like it's not the same. And our beauty comes from our ability to feed ourselves. And our beauty comes from the ability to keep ourselves and our ohana and our ohana aina well. And my feet are built this way because my body is built to do this work. And so the we was not so much a general Hawaiians, but like we as in me and the people I come from, we don't need to look like that. Like I don't need to dress in an office job clothes like to be beautiful. And beauty doesn't come only in that shape and size and look and like package. So
that was pretty much sold to us through and colonialism.
Yes, and so that's the e. So ku'e means to stand different and to remember that idea of beauty, but also that idea of success and that idea of truth and that idea of wellness is different. It's not bad. It's just different than that of the Hawaii. I remember this truth that is my own. And if other people have other truths, I also understand. And that's also true. Like it's not a contest and an argument. But for me, the truth is that ku'e means to stand different and to remember that that's different. Like our commitment is not to the ways that we like fit ourselves in particular clothes. Like our commitment is to the wellness of our ability to feed ourselves and to feed our communities and to feed each other, not just physically, but spiritually, and not just spiritually, but physically, so, ku'e ahi, in the song, it goes, ku'e imawe, ku'e ikako ahiki ke aloha aina hopeloa. Like that's the refrain, right? And that means stand different and stand different and stand different until the very last person who loves their aina. And so that the song is a medicine. It's called Aloha Aina Meds because it's a medley, but also because it's the medicine for Hawaii people to remember what it is to be Hawaii. And so I'm really grateful for that question and for the ability to articulate myself in explaining why that line means so much to me. I'm grateful to my friend who I saw today, and also to my kupuna who reminded me of why I had that experience with my feet. But
amazing.
But yeah, mahalo, Ashton.
So from that song, I love mahalo for your answers, by the way, and your presence. what are your thoughts on this wave of Mele Aloha Aina in the key of reggae? Because there's kind of like a wave happening right now, right? Where,
Yep, yep,
you
yep.
know what I mean?
Yeah, Ikaka actually, he's pursuing his master's degree, and his master's degree is in like Hawaiian music. Also, Ikaka is one of the instrumentalists for Kaikena. So he's been part of that, that kind of like scene of
Mm-hmm.
kaho'o reggae ana o na mele aloha aina, or like to make the aloha aina songs into reggae spaces. I feel like the bottom line is that people who produce music that is reggae music, that is also aloha aina music, these people, including myself, including Kavika Aspili, including Kaikena, including Ikakamai, including Saraniao, including Sudden Rush, all of these people who are pulling truth, aloha aina truth, into this time, are using like reggae slash our understanding of reggae as a vessel, like as a vessel to return people to it's ho'opili ho, like it's like to make people close to again, so like to make people close to aloha aina, to make
So
people
like
close to.
repatriation, kind of.
Yeah, repatriation is totally a good word. That's a good word, Ashen. That's a good word actually, for what that is. It's like to get people to. It's like if we only sang Hawaiian music, it would be really appealing to people who listen to Hawaiian music. But people who listen to Hawaiian music already know the importance of like aloha aina things for the most part.
And they're not the only ones who live in Hawaii. Like there's a whole
Yeah.
generation of local people that grew up on like
Yes.
island music, island reggae type of infusion, Jawaiian.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for the musicians who are doing that, or who are using this modality of sound, are doing that with a specific intention to reach and teach a specific group of people, and then we become ono for more. Like we crave more of music that will touch our guts, like our na'o, that will grab our na'o and rip it to the soil. Like we become more, we crave that more as we hear more of this music. So
I
I
feel
really
like that's such
mahalo.
a Hawaiian thing to branch out into these different genres and to relate to it
Mm,
in their way and to kind of influence people using different avenues and different music.
yeah, yeah, I feel that for sure.
Well, I have a couple more questions for you. I don't want to take any
Yeah, yeah, I
time,
got
but
that
once
time. I got
again,
that time.
mahalo
Yeah.
nui for hanging out with me tonight. Um, how would you define, as a creative native yourself, how would you define that term, creative native?
Hmm. I feel like natives are already creative. Like we are creators.
Hmm.
Like we are the breath of the creator, and we are creation. And so natives are already creative. Um and I think the word creative before the word native reminds us that, you know. That reminds me of a song that I wrote. It's called Meditative Native, but
Oh, mean.
yeah, I never released them. I should probably release that one soon, um but
Oh.
yeah, creative native, I think I'm just kind of like letting that word resound in my mind right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing like baskets. Um, I wrote the song Meditative Native for a Kumeyaay native, and I really, he's a close friend of mine, but he comes from a people of basketry. Like they do basket things.
Like Halakain or
Yeah, but it's more like, ooh, like makaloa, like it's more thinner, like it
okay, I
doesn't.
see.
I think it's more thin. They're the thing that they use to weave. But anyway, I'm just I think a lot of people, when they hear the word native, they think, what do you think of when you hear that word, native?
When I think of that word and when I use that word, I use it in the context of everybody is native to some place, right? We're all native
Mm.
to this earth. We're all native to breath. So that's what I think about when I think about
Mm,
native.
mm, 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 mm. I think some people think warrior when they think native. I think some people think like strong or strength or
Mm-hmm.
like spear or like war or like something, But creative native reminds me of, because like if you think of what it is to be native, ture, activism comes to mind.
Yeah.
Protest comes to mind. Radical comes to mind. Like defense comes to mind. Jail comes to mind. Those kinds of things, But
Yeah.
creative native, or like that term creative, reminds us also of the abundance and the nourishment that came before the protection of our land. But the nourishment of our land, the medicine that is our land. The term creative native makes me think of my relationship to Waiau and Kukahau'ula, which are pieces of Mauna Kea. Because my relationship to that Mauna, just by the way, is not only political, and it's not only in spaces of activism. My relationship to that Mauna is a relationship of abundance and peace and joy and rest. So when I think of creative native, it makes me think of the safety that comes before the protection, the nourishment and the goodness that comes before the war.
I was already there.
Yeah, that was already there. Like that's already us. That's what I think of when I hear that term.
Mahalo.
Yeah,
Love
mahalo.
love that answer. And for our last question of the night, I teach with Mana Maori at Halau Kumana and Mahalo
Nice. I
Punio.
love that.
And I was showing the keiki, the Hamana, your song yesterday. They loved it. A few of them knew it. Most of them didn't.
Yeah.
But they're stoking out because, of course, they practice kuha aheo and they know of the song.
Mm.
So when they heard it, they're like, "Oh my god, it's different."
Cute.
So I was just wondering if you have just any one piece of advice for the Hamana. Yeah.
You mean the little people?
Yeah, these I teach 4th to 6th grade, and I told them that I was gonna interview you. So
Mm.
after showing them your song, which they're so excited about, and I asked them if they had any questions for you. They couldn't think of any. But you already answered for us your inspiration behind your song. So mahalo for that. But maybe a piece of advice or some inspirational words for the Hamana in general, for Hamana in
Yeah,
general.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is the first piece of advice was to listen to the words. To listen with your ears, but to listen with your mind and to listen with your heart and to listen with your bones and to listen with your blood and to listen with your skin to the actual words. Because sometimes when we hear it, we sing along, but we're not really listening, you know? So, ku ha'aheo e ku'u Hawaii. Like to listen to those words and then know what they mean. Ma makakawa o ku'u aina. Like all of those words. Every word in the Aloha Aina medley or in the Aloha Aina Meds song, listen to it. That was the first piece of advice that came to mind. And the second piece of advice is Aloha Aina. Ka aina o luna, ka aina o lalo, ka aina o loko, ka aina o waho. And that means like to love your land, the land that is above you, the land that is below you, the land that is within you, and the land that is on the outside of you. To love that. Also, like because this is a clarity that came to me maybe like a month ago or so, but because the air of the aina is the same as the air of the kanaka. So like the air of the aina, the freedom and the liberty of the land, is the same breath that is in the lung that are in the lungs of the people. So love your land above you and below you and inside of you and outside of you is
So
the
beautifully said.
is the
Oh wow.
advice. Yeah, I
Wow.
mahalo Havane for that. When I was having some issues in my personal life, she reminded me of the mauna o luna, ka mauna o lalo, ka mauna o loko, ka mauna o aho. To just love all those articulations of mauna because we are our aina, you know.
Mhm.
So you can't aloha aina and not aloha yourself.
Right.
Yeah, but
Beautiful.
mahalo for having me, Ashton. I really appreciate these
Yes,
questions
mahalo
and
Ku'ulei once again for being on this podcast. I cannot wait for people to learn more about you and to listen to your music.
yes, please listen to my music. Also, the prayer albums, prayers are not just "Dear Heavenly Father," or the prayers are not just like "La ilaha illallah." Like that. That's not the only prayer. Like the prayer is also the intentions that we hold and say and keep in our minds and our bodies. Like the intentions and the thoughts and the things that we do, those are also prayers. So the prayer album is not a bunch of hymns. Like
Yeah.
it's not Christian music. Like that's not what the prayer album is. The prayer album is a compilation of songs about love and light and struggle and land and they are prayers. Each is a prayer for the wellness of those things. So check it out. My Ku'ulei music prayer album. In case anyone was like, "Bro, what?"
No,
You
right
know.
on. Yes,
Mhm.
please go check out her music on all digital platforms. Ku'ulei Music. Once again, mahalo nui Ku'ulei for being with talking with me tonight, and hopefully we can keep tabs on the next project maybe.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I don't have any next projects coming up. I've just been kind of working, but we'll definitely keep in touch about future things.
Awesome. If anybody else wants to reach out to you for any reason, where can they find you?
Yep, at Mauli.ola on Instagram or Ku'ulei at mauliolastrong.com. Those are good places to find me.
Right on. Once again, mahalo agyamanak, and yeah, can't wait to release this one.
Mahalo to you, Ashton.